Ever get that feeling like, you work really hard, but it's like you're making everyone else rich, except yourself?
Yeah.
Well, hopefully today's deep dive will help with that, because we are diving into a classic, The Richest Man in Babylon.
Okay.
But we're adding a little twist to it, because we're also going to be layering in some insights from a contemporary Swedish investor who's actually used a lot of these ancient secrets to build his own fortune.
What I find fascinating is how much these principles hold up across centuries and across cultures.
Right.
It's almost like a universal language of wealth building.
Absolutely. And a perfect example of that. It's where they both start, the cornerstone, this whole idea of paying yourself first.
Yeah.
It sounds so simple, almost obvious, right? But when you actually start to dig in a little deeper.
It's a complete mental shift.
Totally.
Most of us are wired to think, okay, I'm going to pay my bills, maybe have a little fun money, and then whatever's left over, that's what goes to savings.
Yeah.
But both this book and our investor completely flip the script.
Totally. Yeah. You're basically saying that, hey, future me, that's my most important expense.
Exactly.
And it's funny, I was rereading The Richest Man in Babylon in preparation for this, and they had that great analogy about rent.
Oh, yeah.
Like, imagine your rent is $1,000 a month and you make $2,000 a month. Well,
Yeah.
essentially, you're spending 20 hours a week just to keep a roof over your head. You're working for your landlord.
Yeah.
But now imagine if you flip that and you pay yourself that $1,000 first.
Right.
Suddenly, you're working those 20 hours for your own financial future, not just for your landlord's.
And that's a really powerful way to reframe it, because it's not about deprivation.
Right.
It's about deciding that your financial well-being is more important than all those other expenses that can so easily spiral out of control.
Yeah. And another thing that both of our sources today emphasize is consistency. It's like, even if you start small, the key is to just make it a habit.
Absolutely.
It's like brushing your teeth, but for your money, right?
Right. And in fact, the Swedish investor we've been talking about, he actually started with just 5% of his income.
Okay.
And then as he got more comfortable, he gradually increased it over time.
Interesting. So it's not about waiting for this like magical pile of leftover money that, let's be honest, rarely materializes.
Yeah.
It's about making that conscious decision right from the beginning, right from the get-go, to invest in yourself, to put yourself first. Exactly.
But how does that play out in the real world? Right. Like, how do you actually make that happen? That's what I'm really curious about. You know what I've noticed? It's funny how we talk about people who've built wealth.
Yeah.
There's almost this automatic assumption that they just got lucky.
Right.
Like they were in the right place at the right time and boom.
Mm.
But our Swedish investor had this really interesting take on this whole luck versus action debate.
It is tempting to chalk it up to luck, isn't it?
Right.
It's almost like it lets you off the hook. But what's interesting is both The Richest Man in Babylon and this Swedish investor, they both make a really compelling case for the power of action.
So it's not just about sitting back and hoping for the best.
Not at all. It's about creating opportunities, putting yourself out there, and the more you act, the more you learn, the more you refine your approach. Okay.
Luck might play a role, but you've got to at least be in the game
Yeah.
to even notice it.
Right. It's like he used this comparison. It's like two people, okay, and they get the same opportunities in life, but one of them hesitates, waits for the perfect moment, maybe talks themselves out of it.
Right.
The other one, they just dive in head first. They might make some mistakes along the way, but they're learning, they're adapting.
Right.
Who do you think ends up being luckier in the long run?
It's not even a contest, is it? Because the one who's taking action is building momentum.
Totally.
They're putting themselves in a position to actually capitalize
Okay.
when those lucky breaks do come along.
Totally. And that's really where investing comes in, right? It's like you can't just snap your fingers and make these amazing opportunities appear, especially in something like the stock market.
Right. This is where that pay yourself first principle we talked about earlier becomes really, really crucial.
Right.
Because when you're consistently setting aside a portion of your income, you're essentially building up your opportunity fund.
Yeah.
So that when a great investment does present itself, or let's say the market takes a dip and there's suddenly all these bargains to be had, you're ready.
You're not stuck on the sidelines kicking yourself because you blew your savings on that fancy vacation that you didn't even really enjoy.
Exactly. And in fact, this investor's a big believer in being prepared for those moments. He actually sees market downturns as opportunities to buy low. Like he says, the best time to buy an umbrella is when it's raining, not when the sun is shining.
That's a good one. So it's not even just about having the money, it's about having it ready to work for you. when that opportunity comes. But, there's another side to this whole equation, though, right? It's not just about what you earn. It's not even about how well you invest.
Right.
It's about what you do with that money, how you manage those expenses.
Yes.
And this is where I think that whole, like, keeping up with the Joneses mentality
Oh, yeah.
can really trip people up. It's like you work hard, you get that raise, maybe you move into a bigger place, splurge on a new car, and
Yeah.
then suddenly you realize you're no further ahead than you were before, You're just spending more.
It's the hedonic treadmill, right? We
Yeah.
think, oh, a bigger house will make me happier. But then you're just filling it with more stuff. You're working longer hours to pay for it all.
Working harder to buy more things you probably don't need in the first place.
Exactly. It's a never-ending cycle.
And it seems like what both the richest man in Babylon and our Swedish investor are really getting at is this idea that we need to jump off that treadmill entirely.
Absolutely. True wealth, they argue, is not about how much you earn. It's about how much you keep.
It's not about having a lot. It's about keeping what you have.
Exactly. It's about mastering your desires, not being ruled by them.
So how do we actually break free from that cycle in a world that's constantly, bombarding us with these shiny new things?
It's about being intentional.
Hmm.
Our investor, he talks a lot about this, and he doesn't advocate for deprivation.
Right.
But he is a big believer in asking yourself, do I really need this? Or am I just trying to impress someone else?
It's like that saying, right? We buy things we don't need with money we don't have to impress people we don't like.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And this is where the real power of paying yourself first comes in. Because when you prioritize saving and investing right off the bat, it changes your whole relationship with money.
So you're not as tempted to spend that extra dollar because you've already allocated it.
Exactly. Exactly. You're not constantly scrambling to make ends meet or.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stressing about bills.
Yes, exactly. And this brings us to the really exciting part, which is the part where your money starts working for you. Both the richest man in Babylon and our Swedish investor, they're huge advocates for this idea of passive income.
It's like they say, your money should be working just as hard as you do, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's about putting your savings to work through investments that generate income over time.
Like dividends or...
Dividends from stocks, yeah, or rental income from property. There are all sorts of ways to do it, but...
And that's where that whole idea of money never sleeps comes in.
Exactly.
Because your earning potential might be limited by time, by energy, but your money can keep growing 24/7.
That's the beauty of it. It compounds and it just keeps building on itself.
So to wrap it all up, it seems like the richest man in Babylon and the insights from our modern-day Swedish investor really complement each other, and they emphasize some really key principles.
It's all about paying yourself first, being ready to act on opportunities when they arise, keeping your spending in check, and then putting your money to work for you through passive income.
And these principles, they sound simple, but the impact they can have on your financial well-being is huge.
Absolutely. It's a journey building not just wealth, but financial wisdom and freedom.
It's about taking control of your financial future. And on that note, we'll leave you with this. What small step can you take today to start applying these principles in your life?